speaks, she inspires, she's an instigator. Forget superpowers. She'll show you how to find your super conditions, and that's much more powerful. She's a woman on a mission. She is Dyana Valentine. And I'm Sheila Butler. Let's kick this thing off. Hi, everyone. This is Sheila Butler with Successful Women Talk. I want to say thanks for joining me today. Today on the show, we have Dyana Valentine. I am most excited. I don't know how many of you know about her, but she's an instigator. And so let's just jump right in. And I want to say welcome and thanks for joining me, Dyana.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I learned about you, I think, from Blogcast FM. I followed a bit of your work. I love your non-BS approach to everything, so I can't wait to get started.
Let's take a moment to thank Srini because he's amazing, and I love that show as well.
I agree. I listen to his show weekly. I mean, I really love what he does.
Great.
Well, listen, why don't we get started why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got to where you are today?
Okay. Time do we have?
Exactly.
Well, I'll give you the really short version. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up with a bunch of hippies. My mom was a social worker and a fine artist. My dad is an artist. They're both photographers. And I grew up knowing lots of different cultures and lots of different kinds of people. So it'll be no surprise to you that from a very early age, one of my super conditions was very much in effect, which is playing with strangers. And I tell you that in that way because I want everybody watching to know that, you know, our introductions or our current pitch of like, I help leaders learn how to listen to themselves really tells us a teeny little bit about who we might be playing with now, but it doesn't tell us a lot about who we are. And I'm really primarily concerned with who we are and how we can get aligned with our own capacity for doing a variety of things, for thinking and deciding and loving and working and giving, right? Our capacity to do those things. If we can expand those, then whatever it is we're doing on the planet gets easier. Now, the challenge with that is we're always being told we need to do more or be more, right? So that's not different from what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if we can find out what our natural capacity, our natural purpose alignment on the planet is, what we do best and what we do just from our genetics, so mine is playing with strangers, expand my capacity to play with strangers in a way that's sustainable for me, that doesn't burn me out, that doesn't wear me out, that doesn't make me cranky or make me spend money that I don't have, then I can actually use that to do good work on the world.
I love that.
So that's how I wanted to do my intro today. I've been thinking about you guys a lot because I was thinking about like the true nature of success is our capacity to do a variety of things and to be a variety of things.
And do you think those things are born or learned?
Well, I think, look, we learn the tools, right? We learn how to use the tools. We didn't come out knowing how to use a hammer. Come out knowing like what our style was going to be on the internet. However, I think we did come into the planet with a certain set of kind of what I call super conditions, right? They're sort of the pillars of our purpose blueprint. They're like the basics. So it's like whether or not, to objectify us a little bit, it's whether or not we got born as kind of a skyscraper or a 5-bedroom ranch out in the country. Like, and you know what I mean? You know your friends who are the 5-bedroom ranches who are like, you just go and just lean on them to feel better. You know what I mean? And then you have your friends skyscrapers who like you go to for business advice and you know that they will like want to find a solution we can put in an Excel spreadsheet, right?
Right.
There are just people who naturally are like that. So if we can start to put some vocabulary on that, our own vocabulary, not mine, right? This is not about like reading a book so you find out what of the 8 types you are and then you go and like take the workshop that's appropriate for your type. I'm talking about self-defining and designing our own purpose blueprint based on what we know about ourselves. When I was an infant, I would grab onto strangers while my mom was carrying me around and make her stop so I could pat their face and play, la, 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 la. Right? Like, okay, I'm done. Playing with strangers, no brainer, right? It took me a little while to uncover some of my other super conditions, but every single one I uncovered shifted how I do things. It shifted the roles I chose to perform in a variety of situations. And 110% change the design of what I deliver in the world for my business. Since January, when Super Conditions came out this year, to now, the structure of my business has changed.
So by defining what your super conditions are, you're saying that you've now really been able to fine tune your life to what it was sort of supposed to be anyways.
Well, and I think it's not even like what it's supposed to be, because my life was supposed to be what it has been, right? There's no negative judgment on it. It's just that I'm like way more excited, and it feels like I'm doing more appropriate things. Like I didn't know how satisfied I could feel because I felt pretty satisfied. I was doing, so, but it goes back to that learned or born with thing. It's like, use the things we've learned to make the things we were born with more awesome.
Right. So let's do this. So let's kind of narrow down what and really define what you mean by a super condition. I love it.
Here's the deal with super conditions. Super conditions are descriptions of the whys that we came in with. So why I'm on the planet is to gather together. It's to create situations where artists can commune and create art together. And I like a sort of multidisciplinary approach. So I say like multidisciplinary party doing.
Okay.
That's one of my super conditions. And in fact, I just rewrote that in my head and I really like it. Multidisciplinary party doing, right? So I like fun, mixed topic things happening in the world. So I'm always going to be more attracted to ice cream with like things in it. You know what I mean? Versus like vanilla. Although vanilla is delicious, don't get me wrong. I just want to put hot fudge and like dried fruit and like play with it, right? And sculpt it into something and then dip it in chocolate and then eat it, right? It's like the complicated. I also love playing with strangers. I also have one that I've been working with lately, which is the tall orders.
Okay.
These are they're just neutral descriptions of my why. So if I would fight for tall orders. If I had to do only very simple boiled down things that really had like tasks that repeat all the time and that were always very familiar to me, you would see a crazy person in front of you. Like I would be picking fights, I'd be drinking, I'd be smoking, I'd be like, where are the lines of meth to snort? Because it just wouldn't be, it would make jail to me, right? So I always got the comment that I always do things the hard way. I know that somebody watching this has had this experience. If you can make a list right now of 5 slams that your family and friends and teachers and all those people have made that have repeated over your life, I want you to write those down.
Okay.
So take these lifelong flaws, these things that we have integrated into our apology for being on the planet. Like, I'm sorry, I know I'm too sensitive. That's a big one, right?
Or not sensitive enough.
Not sensitive enough. Whatever you apologize for, you're criticized for, whatever, your major life flaws. My suggestion is that we have been socialized or we have learned how to make those flaws. And I believe they're actually our internal awes. They're the things that make us awesome. They're the things that make us amazing. And we've just been hazed to thinking that they're our fuck ups. Can we?
It's okay.
Take your flaws and put them down on a piece of paper. And I want you to take those flaws. I want you to say, when I'm at my best, this particular flaw looks like this. When I'm at my worst, this particular flaw looks like this.
Okay.
And just sort of in the middle somewhere, it looks like this. So for instance, let's take my tall order. So this used to be, why do you make everything so hard? Okay. When I make everything super hard, that means, generally speaking, I'm in over my head, I've overcommitted, I don't understand something, or I've chosen something that's truly out of my bailiwick. Now, this happens extremely rarely now, but it does happen every once in a while, because I'm seduced by tall orders, right? If it's hard or challenging or it's new to me and someone's offering it to me on a silver platter, I'm going to fucking go for the complicated thing and be like, how do you eat this, you know? So at its best, at its absolute best, I'm like advising a team of thin film physicists about group collaboration and how they can work on their problem solving, because they all came from different institutions to work at this amazing place. They're all like taking off work, they're away from their families, they're making this major risk, and the project is not moving.
Okay.
That's freaking tall order. I don't know. I don't need to know physics for that. I just need to know humans for that. But on paper, that looks like a tall order. So you see how I suddenly took something that had been a criticism and I actually found out, you know what? I would fight for that. That's like part of who I am when you look at it in the positive. So if you find something that's part of who you are and you would fight in an alley for it, you got a super condition.
Now, can you make a living in a business out of your super conditions?
Well, if you can breathe on the planet, of course you can make a living. Making a living part is the what. So I want you to visualize that. We have our whys, our core, the playing with strangers, tall orders, my sense of freedom. I like to move about the world with ease and flexibility and a great deal. I like style, like I'm wearing satin, for goodness sakes, it's 8 a.m. You know what I mean? There are these kind of core whys. The way we look at the planet constitutes our whys, our foundation. And then a little cap that kind of sits on top of that are our hows. So that's sort of like how we like to move, like shiny versus smooth, ocean versus city, big groups versus small groups. That's our how we like to move through the planet. And oftentimes those goes overlooked too, because we get a model that's delivered to us that says, here's what an online coaching business or whatever looks like, or a independent business looks like, so conform to this model, and we get all confused. So we've got our natural hows. So one of mine is on stage and on camera, right? It's not specific, it's my how preference, right? And I like to live near the ocean. So I live 11 blocks from the ocean. The water is super important to me. So we have our hows, we have our whys, our hows, then we have our whos. And this is super, super important to everybody watching. Even though you don't think you necessarily can choose to be a mom or not, mom and mother is a role. We get to actively choose that role. And don't even tell me you don't get to actively choose that every day, because you could go get in the car and never come back. Mom, entrepreneur, businesswoman, MC. One of mine is Oracle, because I go to sleep and people ask me questions and I wake up and I tell them what I think the answers or new questions are. So I have all these roles: speaker, instigator, whatever, all these roles. Now, at any given time, I could consciously choose one of those to really be in if I was aware enough to choose it. Otherwise, it's choosing me, right? We get assigned roles by our communities and by society. It says, here's what a woman is, so go do that, right? Shave your legs, whatever that is. We've got our how, then we have our who we are. Then and only then can we start talking about our whats, which are what we make money at. How much money do we make? How much do we charge? What is our product called? What is our company called? What's our URL? Those are all whats. How do we market it? Now, the thing about it is that 90% of what we see, or a very high percentage of what we see in terms of instructionals or things we pay for to build our businesses, have to do with the what. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody that talks a little bit about values or talks a little bit about what your core story is or something like that. But almost always, it's really geared toward the what. And my suggestion is, if you don't know what your whys are and you haven't put them in your own words, your whats are going to be like basically flapping in the wind. They're going to be your Hail Mary passes. All right, well, I'm going to try it the way she does it, because she made 6 figures last year. Now, we don't know how much she spent.
Exactly.
Actually paying the rent, whatever. But we just go for it, right? Because the what seems to be what we get measured by. It's what we get measured by, of course. So my premise is, let's get back to the why, because the whys are going to drastically change the what. I know they have for me. I know they have for the hundreds of people I've worked with this year, because I've spoken to groups, I've done small workshops, I've worked with individuals. I have been testing this every day this year, either on myself or on other people. And it is absolutely amazing what's happening.
I love that. Okay, so so you've talked about how you've really focused in on your business. It's changed since January, when you had this epiphany of all of this super condition. So how does someone find that? So we have a lot of people that are, like you said, are labeled by society. We're moms, we're dads, we're employees, and we sometimes get lost in those things. So how does someone really focus in and find what their super conditions are?
Well, you got to start with that flaw exercise. That's your first place because it's the place that it's easiest for everybody. We can all come up with a list as long as our arm, leg, and other leg about what's wrong with us, right? But as you start to make that list, just choose 5 of the main things and start working on them and work that spectrum. On the yay side, I'm really good at this, and this is how it looks when I'm awesome. On the nay side, here's how it looks when I'm bad. Those are going to start your core conversations with yourself. And what will happen is, as you start reframing those things and starting to look for the commonalities, so what will happen is most people will make a big giant list and then start working on it, right? And you'll start to see some trends. So you'll start to see things that kind of fit together, like, oh, well, I guess this is kind of describes how I relate to my family, or this is kind of how it describes how I relate to nature. These kind of describe how I am, like, why I'm so persnickety about things. Like, you'll start to see little clusters forming. And when you start to see those little clusters forming, you'll start to notice, oh, so if this really isn't something that sucks about me, and this is something that I really, actually, on a good day, works really well for me, I could just go do more of that. I could stop there. I could stop at the level of this awakening of how superconditions changes the way we think. It changes the way we think about ourselves. It changes our self-criticism. It makes us apologize less. It gives us a little bit more vocabulary to describe ourselves. So when somebody says, I don't know why you did it that way, you can say, hate to break it to you, sister, but all orders and I'm not going to change it anytime soon. Like, and here's why I do it. Here's my why. If you can walk through the planet even knowing one of your whys, I guarantee you it's going to shift the way you look at your whats.
I love that.
When I found the tall order, I realized I want to work with people who are doing really different things. So then I started to compose my workshop groups when I would go to different cities and people would apply to the workshop and I would look through the applications. I wanted some people who were doing blue collar work. I wanted some people who were in their 20s. I wanted some people who were in their 60s. I wanted some people I wanted there to be a real integration of information. I like ethnic diversity. I think it's very important that we put ourselves in situations where we're with people who are different from us. Remember, my super conditions determine who's in the room.
Right. Super
conditions decide what the cast of characters is that I work with. And a lot of times we think, oh no, well, we'll just take whoever, like everyone, right? So you just take them. That would be the best solution, because if you look at what your true outcome objective is, it's usually not just paying the bills, because there are lots of easier ways to just pay the bills. We've chosen.
That's right.
Right. So really stop yourself when you say, when you're like, yeah, Diana, well, I know what the what is. The what is paying the bill. Come on now. Let's go a little deeper. So I think that that's really the place to start. Start with your 5 biggest flaws. And if you don't know what they are, ask somebody and they'll tell you.
Yeah, I bet some people will be volunteering to tell us what those are. Here, let me tell you. Let me help you.
And this is their opportunity to actually help you. Those volunteered that information for years and it wasn't helpful. This is their opportunity. They'll be so happy you asked.
Now, are your superpowers also, I guess, really your strengths?
Super conditions.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I have superpowers. You have super conditions. No.
And by the way, if you get a chance to hear Fabeku Fatunmise talk about his spiritual version of superpower, like he believes we have one superpower, he is absolutely brilliant. So he looks at it as a core superpower that you kind of build on other things, which I think is great. Whatever model turns you on, use it, So, but our super conditions really are, what was the question? Sorry.
Are they more of our strengths? So even though some people consider them our flaws, they're really probably our strengths, but maybe we don't even see that.
I actually think our strengths kind of weave through this whole model. So I think that the super conditions can point at things that make us feel strong. Okay. So remember, I described a flaw, and I described it at its negative side, and then at its positive side, so the yay side, the nay side, and the kind of neutral. So on the yay side, that's us exhibiting our strengths, whatever they are. we're more likely to be able to be strong when our super conditions are in the yay side of the spectrum. We're more likely to feel or be weak when we're at the nay side.
Okay.
We're susceptible over there. We make worse decisions. We feel worse about ourselves. We kind of flap around the universe and aren't really with ourselves. We're not really aware. So I think that like strengths are things that they change over time. We learn new ones. We practice new ones. We can learn some. Some came in with us. But I think that if you're operating at the yay side of the spectrum, you're more likely to feel strong, which means your strengths are in evidence.
Got it. And I'm guessing once you really start to define those super conditions, whether you're an employee or you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, you're going to, like you said, choose better clients. Maybe you're going to pick better employees, and maybe that changes your whole being.
And if you're in fourth grade, you'll pick better friends. I mean it. I mean this work to become a practice. I want this to become something that families talk about so that we can help. Because around 9, 10 years old, it's that cusp where it's like you're kind of not only part of your parents, but you're not quite super surly and like not wanting to be part of anything.
Right.
At that beautiful decision making, I think it's prime leadership training age. And this is what this is about. If you can build your capacity, then you have a capacity to lead, to decide, to give, to do good work, right? So I would love for this to be something that families talk about over the holidays. Hey, what do you think your super condition is? Like, and you could have fun with it. People will be naming each other. But then you have a way to say, you know what? I don't take that as a slam anymore. I'm just going to write that down and I'm going to work on that later. Telling me something about myself that I didn't want to pay attention to, and I'm going to decide to tell you tomorrow why that makes me awesome.
I love
Can you
that.
Different your interactions would be if you looked at life this way?
Yeah, I think you'd probably be much less stressed. I think the challenge with that is, so, you have all these public school systems that every child is, put into a box. And if you don't fit into that box, you're not normal, or you're not accepted, or you're not the gifted child. And so it's almost, I think, would be a challenge. I agree with you. It'd be great if we could talk about and teach super conditions at a young age. But public school it's all the same difficulty of not everybody fits in that box. So how do you teach that? How do you get parents to understand that process as well when we've all been put in that box and trained that way?
I think the moment that you have had a realization that everything you thought about, that you thought was wrong with you, that you can suddenly use that as material to be great on the planet, I think the empowerment that comes with that is undeniable. I think people can't wait to share it with somebody else. My clients in this year have been like, I tried to explain it, and it was kind of, because it's kind of a dense concept, right? How you get into it. I'm working on it, right? And I'm trying to make it easier for people because, again, I think in very complicated, like, it's not daunting to me that it has like 5 moving parts and a bunch of activity because I've been doing it for a year, right? And it didn't exist before. There's no guidebook, right? So you can actually create it yourself. I think the moment you understand that you have this really core set of super conditions that is only yours, it's not arguable. You can't say, well, so-and-so gives me this lecture every week that says I'm supposed to have this, this, and this, so I guess I'll go try to be honest. If your super condition looks more like honesty and service to man, what you're willing to say openly is going to be different if your super condition is honesty and service to family.
Yes.
You're just different whats. You're going to do different things on the planet. And if you give yourself your own self-defined permission slip to be more of you, I think that you won't be able to help but share it with other people. I think it's going to be an evangelistic movement where people say, no, really, my life has changed because I realized these like 5 or 6 things about myself, and I now know how to use them for good and not evil. It'll be a no-brainer.
And what a gift you could give a child, right? To teach them, hey, it's okay if you're different. It's okay if you take the challenging route to everything. It makes you who you are. And once you get that, it reminds me of, I don't watch a lot of TV, but I do record like the X Factor. And I was watching it the other day, and there was this young lady on there that had been bullied in school, and she was just different. She colored her hair. I mean, she was just different. She didn't fit into what was the norm. And when she was accepted and understood how awesome she really is by people that she considered mentors, like all the coaches, the change and the look in her eyes immediately was amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost that same thing.
Beautiful, right? Beautiful. And it's contagious.
Right.
Greatness is as contagious as our self-deprecation. Our capacity to grow and change and give is way more contagious than our capacity to restrict and be silent. And what, we don't want to, like, don't put yourself in a corner unless you like the corner. If that's your circumstances, that you really like to be in a confined space that has a very very laid out process, great, do more of that. Don't try to be a freelance whatever loosey-goosey person. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. But really make it pragmatic. Like, I think that a lot of times these conversations about who we are so they're so diffuse, because they're using somebody else's language, or like, oh, you're, on the Enneagram, you're an 8. So that means you're like this, this, and this. And it's like, wait, my name is Dyana. Have we met? I tell you that I like to play with strangers. I like to give and take tall orders. I put another one up. I host space for artists and public figures to co-create. I have this whole other vocabulary for myself. And it's beautiful, and it's way more specific. It really tells you who I am. And it tells you whether or not we're going to groove together.
And I get that. My concern is, or not concern, my question is how does someone, like, I get so much energy just from talking to you, but you say you're different today than you were just 10 months ago. How do you get there?
Well, here's the thing. Our whys are there for us. They don't change. They're there. Now, how we choose to live them, yay or nay, is up to us. That's our job. So I figured out some of my whys, and I started to live them at the yay end. Not all of them. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm discovering new ones every day. I'm like, why does this feel cranky, edgy, whatever? I'm still figuring out, right? But when I started to even work 2 or 3 of them, I just saw things happen. I mean, I've been in 10 cities and 3 countries this year with super conditions.
Wow.
Dia just came in January. Think about that.
And you probably can't stop talking about it, right?
Why would I stop talking about something that has changed my life? And I've watched it change hundreds of people's lives. I've watched people go, ding. And listen, all you need is the ding. You don't have to become an expert at it. You don't have to take it to your church group. You don't have to teach your fourth grader. If you are making this change for yourself, your vibration goes up, the world gets better. I just know it. So I don't have any lofty ideas that everybody's going to be on this. They're going to be taking super conditions missions around the world or whatever happen. I trust that will happen, but it's not required for everybody. What's required is a teeny little expansion of your capacity. Even if you just leave this conversation going, I wonder what my capacity to decide is right now. Like right now, I'll tell you right now, my capacity to decide is kind of diminished. I'm tired. I've been working. I think this is going to be like day 20. It's ridiculous. So I'm taking tomorrow off, but just saying, like, I'm beat. I woke up this morning. I was like, shit, bedhead, It was like, I'm tired. My capacity to decide is lower. And the reason why I can acknowledge that and not beat myself up about it is because I have a deep well of compassion. I have a deep well of compassion for other people that I rarely turned on myself until this year, because I had to listen to people say, oh my God, your compassion, you have to figure out what your super condition for compassion is because it's off the charts. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, you always remember when my mom died, my dad died, my dog died, you call me, and when I screw up, you're not mean. And I was like, that's compassion? Like that's just like garden variety civility. Like they were like, no one does that. You're the one person who calls me still on the day my dad died. And I was like, wait a minute, why isn't anyone else calling you? And then I'm like,
that just comes natural for you. Yeah.
Just part of what when it's working well, right? It looks like that. Now, what I realized is it wasn't working all that well because I wasn't being very nice to myself. And it just occurred, it like literally landed on my forehead one morning. I was like, oh, I'm so full of shit. It's not all the way over it yet. I'm not like all like, oh, crown me the princess of compassion, because I am a bitch to myself. So I just literally, I cut it out. And when I feel myself getting there, I recognize that my ability to be compassionate to myself and other people expands my capacity for compassion. It expands my capacity to make decisions that are going to serve more people than just me. It expands my capacity to be generous.
Let me let
So
me
I
ask you
think it's
this. Do you believe in you're either a glass half full, glass half empty person and you choose which one you are?
well, if I were to choose, right? I want to be glass half full because that's more popular. But here's the thing, I think it's a spectrum. Like yesterday, I was like, the sky is falling all day. I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to get this done until all about this deadline. Oh, look, caca, caca, caca. I was totally freaking out. And I stopped myself and I was like, really? Like, is this just who you are? You're always looking for the like black lining to things? Like, that's too good to be true. Oh, that one. She's going to be mad at me and she's going to fire me as a client because I didn't get that thing to her yesterday. Hun, she is stuck in New York from the hurricane. She is not even worried about my little.
She's not even thinking about you.
Probably is because she's very like organized. You just lighten up, Francis, and I think you get to choose what you do with your natural proclivities, and I do think you get to train your natural proclivities to some level. So I get to choose how I use my super conditions. And I think that's what you're saying about, choosing half your world outlook, whatever, if you're a pessimist or an optimist. Aren't we all kind of pessimistic sometimes and optimistic
I
sometimes?
agree. I have those days as well. Yeah.
But it's like the same with the introvert extrovert myth. Like it's as if we're all always introverted and or all always extroverted. That's not
Right.
true.
I agree. The other day, what I love, Diana, is that you're so honest about saying, you know what, I have crappy days also. Yesterday was a terrible day. I was beating myself up yesterday. Although you may look like, when we started this conversation, everybody probably looked at you and oh, she's perfect. She does everything. She's got it. She understands her life. But we're not that way. Stop comparing ourselves to everyone else, right?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if one of your super conditions has to do with together we can or something like that has to do with like, I identify my success through my family's success or through us all moving together. Now, there's a codependent side of that, right? Which is on the nay side that says I can't be happy unless everybody else is happy. But if that was truly your super condition, that really made you feel whole, then yeah, you're going to be using the data you have around you to make the whole better. So I don't want to throw that idea out with the bathwater just because we've been trained, like, don't compare yourself. Like, there might be something deeper there. Now, if we go down in the layers and say, okay, I like one of my flaws is I compare myself to other people or I feel inadequate all the time. And you look inside that flaw and you go, well, why do I do that? Well, I do that because the grass is always greener, or I do that because I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood and the pattern was I had to pretend like I was whatever. You start to go into the why. You get deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you get down to a core why, keep asking yourself why. If you get down to a core why that says, well, really, I feel like we aren't successful until we are successful. So you start to look at what you do to bring other people up. To bring other people up because it helps buoy you and you keep bringing people up. And then you look at other people who aren't doing that, who aren't generous, who don't share the super condition with you, and you're mad at them. You can be mad at them not for having had the success, but you can be sort of like, oh, that shows me that that's not how I want to do it in the world. I want to do this. So I'm going to be more likely to be of service to my community when I have money than they are. But like it becomes a non-starter if you realize why that's true for you, if you realize it's because you love bringing people up and you like to be around people who will bring you up, then you just change your focus and stop focusing on the dipshit over here who doesn't care about anybody and just wants to make money. Move
I
on.
agree.
Get new friends, get a hobby. I don't know.
Let me ask you, if someone wants to figure out more about learning about their super conditions and how maybe you could help them with that, what are you doing? I mean, I know you do some speaking. I think you have some courses on your site. Let's talk just a bit about that as well.
I'll tell you the sort of three ways into this. One is starting next year in January, I'm going to be doing quarterly super conditions workshops. So they are going to be just call-in workshops, 2 hours, and I'm going to download a bunch of super conditions, and I'm going to work with about 4 or 5 people live on the call. And the purpose for that is I want to really contain the super conditions work and have it be accessible to people. So I want there to be a kind of introductory point where you can just think about it, look about it, and it's going to benefit a local charity in my neighborhood. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to show you how I'm living my super conditions. So my intention of this super condition work is it becomes a practice, a larger practice that influences the way people gather together and increases capacity in our society. But also, I'm very interested in how, and the most important thing to me is this capacity to give. So if we're not making inherent into our business, our super conditions, we're kind of lying, right? So I realized I was kind of not being totally honest with the universe or God or however you want to look at it, because I really wasn't giving a lot. I'm on 2 boards, so that's good, but I wasn't really like making it show that I'm interested in giving and what kind of giving I'm interested. I'm interested in local giving. So I'm doing this virtual workshop every quarter. And then I do super conditions workshops in different cities. So people can come bring me to their city and I'll do a super condition workshop, a private one. It's usually about 8 to 10 people. And sometimes when people host me, they also host a speaking night, like where I'll just give a talk for about an hour. And that's really fun. So I am open to that. You may host me and I would love to come. There's the by phone kind of intro workshop. Then there's these I will travel, right, pieces. And then there's the intuitive leadership lab. And the leadership lab is really about getting 5 amazing people together who come from very diverse backgrounds, who are working on very different things, and working with me in an unlimited way for 8 weeks. This is a vision that came through directly from my super conditions. It did not exist before last month. Right now, it is absolutely amazing. And the purpose of that to me is, so we've already had like super conditions change the way you think. Super conditions might change the way you give because of the model I used. Now super conditions are changing the way people work and love. Now, I added love in because I did not design it this way, but there are so many people using super conditions to improve their marriages, their relationship with their kids, that I have to put it in. It's just what's happening. So if we change the way we think, we could just go away and do that. Change the way we think and work, then we start to get into actual corporal, concrete changes that happen. Then if we change the way we give, if we change the way we really structure our lives to increase our capacity to give, just imagine what happens in the world. So that piece will probably look like some other ways of interacting with me, which I haven't designed yet. But right now, your choices are host me in your city, come to a virtual workshop, or work with me intensely with 4 other amazing people.
I love that. And I watched your TED Talk, and we'll link that up because I think everyone should see it. It was really, really good.
You. Oh, the I'm Not Sorry?
Yeah, the I'm Not Sorry. It was terrific.
You.
And I can't wait for people to see it, just to even see the story of how you got there. Because there again, you were afraid, fear happened, and then you got over that, and you did it, and look where you are.
Yeah, and I didn't get over it. I just got up on stage.
You just did it.
Try to get over it. I just showed up that day and stood up there and did it. I was terrified. It was horrible. But it was great in the same way.
It was great. It was great. Diana, we will link everything up in the show notes. I so appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. Such a wealth of information. We'll link your website up, and I really appreciate you.
Me too. Really fun.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Successful Women Talk. Listen, a lot of people ask me, Sheila, how did you build a business from 0 customers in revenue to thousands of customers and multi-7 figures within a few short years? Here's the secret sauce. We had great products, excellent customer service, and we leveraged, this is key, we leveraged our systems and processes. If you want to learn more about this or how to reclaim your time, join me over at www.successfulwomentalk.com and I'll show you how to get the life, business, and customers you want. Thanks so much.